Good evening. Tonight we explore the life of Charlie Kirk, the man, the husband, the father, the visionary, and what he stood for as the founder and president of Turning Point USA. We live in an era of profound ideological divides, a world dominated by sound bites where contextual truth is routinely sacrificed in the relentless pursuit of political agendas. Yet the assassination of Charlie Kirk casts a stark light on an eternal truth. Freedom of speech transcends politics. Tonight we reflect on Charlie's legacy. We hope to do it justice by presenting what he stood for in its full, unvarnished context. When asked in an interview what he wished to be remembered for, his answer was unequivocal: his unwavering dedication to his faith. It's evident that Charlie's belief in the divine was the compass guiding his moral convictions, and by extension, his political views. It's not yet entirely clear why the gunman, armed with a rifle, premeditatedly scaled the roof, took aim, and sought to silence Charlie's voice forever. But one truth is emerging with crystalline clarity: the responsibility of the media and social media alike to foster honest, transparent, and principled discourse has never been more vital. The moral relativism that has plagued our society begs our attention if we are to honor voices like Charlie's and safeguard the freedoms in which he championed. In the wake of this tragedy, let us remember Charlie not just as a political firebrand, but as a tireless advocate for the next generation, a beacon who ignited the flames of traditional values, making faith and spirituality mainstream in the hearts of countless young minds through Turning Point USA. His unyielding commitment to empowering youth with the tools of critical thinking and civic engagement reminds us that true change begins with conviction rooted in timeless principles, far beyond the fleeting battles of the day. As we mourn Charlie's loss, may we channel his spirit into a renewed pledge to bridge divides with dialogue, to uphold faith as our guiding light, and to reject the shadows of division that threaten our shared humanity. Charlie's voice may have been stilled, but his message carries on, calling us all to stand firm in truth and liberty. And tonight we gather with great respect to honor and reflect on Charlie Kirk's enduring legacy and the values that guided his life. To help us in this endeavor, we're happy to be joined by a remarkable group of individuals who knew Charlie well and personally. Among our guests, Kari Lake, CEO of the United States Agency for Global Media, who worked closely with Charlie during her campaign in their shared home state of Arizona, as well as Charlotte Perez and Malia Shirley, both alumni of Turning Point USA and dear friends of Charlie. Charlie Kirk leaves behind a beautiful family. Yesterday, Mrs. Erica Kirk, Charlie's now widow, delivered an emotional address to the nation. She described their 3-year-old daughter asking where her father is. Here's that moment.
When I got home last night, Gigi, our daughter, just ran into my arms. And I talked to her and she said, "Mommy, I missed you." I said, "I miss you too, baby." She goes, "Where's Daddy?" What do you tell a 3-year-old? She's 3. I said, "Baby, Daddy loves you so much. Don't you worry. He's on a work trip with Jesus, so he can afford your blueberry budget."
Kari, thank you so much for joining. You're from the state of Arizona, very close to Charlie. Talk to us about your experience meeting him and how he touched your life personally.
Well, if I may, I just want to comment on the clip you just showed, because I know I was not the only one. As a matter of fact, I think millions of people around the globe saw that address from Erica Kirk and were crying last night. It was as if the Holy Spirit was working directly through her and that she was able to communicate so beautifully what is happening in her life, the pain, and what her plans are, which is to continue on even stronger and continue on Charlie's legacy in an even stronger way. I have immense respect for both Erica and Charlie, and I got to know him, of course. Actually, when I first got to know him was when I quit my job in media. I walked away from the media because I recognized that the media was pushing lies, especially during COVID is when I really woke up. And I said, I don't want to be a part of that. And Turning Point reached out to me and asked me to do one of their events. It was during COVID. I remember everybody had to sit 6 feet apart. We had all of these ridiculous rules. And that was the very first Turning Point event I ever did. First time I met Charlie. And then after that, I attended his reception with Erica and Charlie's reception in Phoenix after they got married. And of course, got to know Charlie better and better through politics. He was at my house with Erica before they had children, having dinner one night, and it happened to be the night that President Trump endorsed me in my race for governor. And I'll never forget, I was on cloud nine. I was so excited. I got the most important endorsement in all of politics. And I'm sitting there across my dining room table with Charlie and Erica, and Charlie said, okay, you've celebrated. Now we got to get busy. Nose to the grindstone. What's next? What's the plan? And we planned out the entire campaign and how it would look during dinner that night. And it was just a really pivotal moment, of course, that I'll never forget. And of course, Charlie then continued to help along the campaign trail, whether coming to our campaign events or inviting me to have a voice during the Turning Point events. And then on a personal level, my daughter worked at Turning Point with Charlie and at Turning Point USA. And most of her friends, including, I see Charlotte here on the screen tonight with me, and these lovely Turning Point youth. And most of my daughter's friends have a Turning Point connection. He brought kids together. My daughter's boyfriend, she met through politics because of Turning Point, inspiring them to get involved. But it's not just the young people. Charlie Kirk and Turning Point inspired their moms and dads, their grandmas and grandpas. And he took that passion they had, he ignited it in them, and he said, now we can't just sit and complain, and we can't just be passionate, we have to do something with it. And he gave them the blueprint, how to be politically active. What does that mean, and how do you get involved, step by step? And so I can't say enough about my friend Charlie, the impact he's had on the world, and the immeasurable loss, losing a man at 31. But they say it's not how many years you live, but how much life are in those years. And Charlie lived an incredible life in just 31 years, doing more than most people would do in many lifetimes. And I know that when that assassin bullet struck Charlie in the neck and took his life, that I believe he was met with big open arms from our Savior, his Savior, and is firmly planted now in heaven watching over us. And I see a spirit in Erica and a strength in Erica that she probably didn't even know she had. And I feel that his legacy will live on even stronger. Charlotte, talk to us. You obviously knew Charlie well in a way that many people didn't. What was he like, and what was he like to you on a personal level?
Thanks so much, Steve, for having us on. We really appreciate it. Carrie, so nice to see you as well. I think I joined Turning Point back in 2019 before all the COVID mass hysteria when I graduated college. And so I was fresh out of college when I joined Turning Point, and I, had the privilege of working with Turning Point Action, the political arm of Turning Point USA, and I got to see kind of what it looks like with everyone coming together and just going, so hard in making sure that we get, President Trump across the finish line back in 2020. I think having a leader as Charlie, one thing that he consistently did was taught us, nobody cares, work harder. And he was consistently, just encouraging us and just constantly being a leader of making sure that we worked harder and harder and harder. We did whatever we could to make sure that on the night, of election night, we did everything we could to get our candidate across the finish line. I think also as a leader, Charlie just had such a pure heart, and he just wanted what was best for everybody. He, really helped shape me as a conservative. I think coming fresh out of college, I think 2019 was probably the last normal year that we had as a college student. And Charlie was able to help me grow in my beliefs as a conservative. And, I would like to think today that he definitely molded me into the person that I am and the community that is Turning Point. I mean, we have Malia here, who's also on the show, who, now we live here together. We're in DC, and it's all because of Charlie, and without Charlie, we would not be here together. I think what we've seen on social media over the course of the last 4 days, we've seen so many people tagging us in different trends of, without you, I wouldn't, without Charlie, I wouldn't know you. Without Charlie, I wouldn't be here. So many people just, giving Charlie massive shout outs and knowing that even though this horrific tragedy took place, unfortunately, Charlie's message will only get louder. It will be more impactful. And like Erica said in her video last night, the battle cry that you will hear across the United States for the rest of our lives, as long as we shall live, will be for Charlie.
Malia, just in the small group that we have here, there's already 5 minutes into the show. So many stories about how Charlie has impacted people personally, from Carrie to her daughter to Charlotte. What area did Charlie have the most impact on you, and what have you learned from him?
Absolutely. Again, thank you, Steve, for having us. It would probably be shorter to tell you what area of my life Charlie didn't impact. He was instrumental in every part of where I am today. I met Charlie as a freshman in college back in 2014, and he worked closely with me and numerous other Turning Point leaders throughout the course of my college career when it was not popular and it was not cool to be a conservative on campus. We would host events with Charlie, and it was like pulling teeth to get people to come. I often joke no one knew or cared who Charlie Kirk was back then. And in the years since, just last year, I actually have been in medical school for the past 3 years, and even throughout medical school, continuing to work with Charlie in whatever capacity I could, continuing to plan campus events. He came out to Nebraska, where I'm from, last year and was at the university there, and to see the shift in campus culture from no one wanting to be associated with us or to care what Turning Point was, to seeing people genuinely mob him at these campus tour stops and events and wanting their hats signed and shirts signed. Just the way he has shifted culture throughout the past even just 10, 11 years that I've known him. It has been unlike anything that I've ever seen in my short lifetime, albeit. But as I mentioned, I was in medical school, and he, called me up after the election and said, okay, I need you to take a break from school. The administration needs you in DC. And I said, well, it's medical school. I don't know if I can pause that. In classic Charlie fashion, he just says, well, school can wait. And he was right. And here I am. And I'm here with Charlotte and so many other great Turning Point leaders that have found professional careers because of Charlie and made connections across the United States. And all of the most important, informative relationships in my life I have met because I knew Charlie.
Really touching anecdotes that each one of you has shared personally. We thank you for that. Faith was really a guiding factor in Charlie Kirk's way of life. We've actually prepared a few clips of him speaking about faith. Let's have a look.
If you could be associated with one thing, how would you want to be remembered?
I want to be remembered for courage for my faith. That would be the most important thing. Most important thing is my faith in my life.
You're getting these threats. Does it alarm and concern you for your children?
I mean, yes and no. We take proper precautions. That's all I'll say. And we feel confident in that. But also, I mean, my wife is the best person ever, and she's a patriot and she's a believer, and we don't want to have to be accountable to God when this life passes. And he asks, why did you not trust in me and not fight evil? My call is to fight evil and to proclaim truth. That's it.
One of the reasons we're living through a constitutional crisis is that we no longer have a Christian nation, but we have a Christian form of government, and they're incompatible. So you cannot have liberty if you do not have a Christian population.
And God made us in his image. We are image bearers of the divine. And if we're serious about saving this country, We need to get back to the source of where that inheritance came from, the Word of God, and our true citizenship, which is in heaven.
I've always also been a devout atheist.
What do you think happens when you die?
Nothing.
We as Christians have hope that we are going to see our loved ones again, and that we will be in heaven, and that we will be in perfect peace, and that this is not it.
Yeah.
In fact, there's something even better awaiting us. So I hope one day that you do seek to find something higher and better, that this is not all for us in our existence. Thank you so much.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Thank you.
Carrie, talk to us about Charlie's loyalty to his faith, his friends, and country, and how can we focus on these principles that he believed in and advocated for moving forward?
Well, I'll never forget when I went to my first TP USA Faith event, and Charlie held these, I think it was every Tuesday night, if I recall correctly, at churches around Arizona and maybe around the country. But of course, I was campaigning in Arizona. And there would be 2,000 people who would show up on a Tuesday night, sometimes 3,000, to hear Charlie talk about the importance of making sure that you are good with God, that you are doing the most important thing, which is the spiritual work that is required of us, that is required for our salvation. And he moved so many people who would maybe with some curiosity show up to a TP USA Faith event, not really knowing what to expect, who then decided to dust off their Bible and start reading it. And, you know, we're talking tonight about a turning point and how it brought so many young people together. And my daughter's friends, the vast majority of them have had some influence by Turning Point, whether they were in a chapter at their school, if they volunteered time, if they worked for Turning Point. And this wasn't just something that Charlie did and, you know, was talking to older people. He talked to the young people about this as well. These young people who came up through Turning Point are all very much active in their spiritual life. Not a week goes by where my daughter doesn't meet up with her friends who, like I said, we're all connected to Turning Point, and they get together and I say, hey, what did you guys do tonight? Oh, we did Bible study. This is a regular thing, and I got to give Charlie Kirk credit for that. I don't know if there's any moms out there watching, but you know how happy you feel when you find out your daughter in her 20s was out with her friends and what they were doing was Bible study. It's the greatest thing ever. Charlie saved souls. Charlie brought people back to the church. Charlie did something more important than politics, and that is brought people back to their faith. And I think that is what he really would probably love to be remembered by. And I think you heard it in that soundbite that you just played a bit ago. But I'll never forget one of the last events I did with Charlie before the election was at Trinity Church in Scottsdale, and it was on a Sunday morning. We both went to church. Pastor Mark Driscoll, who's an incredible pastor in Arizona and really recognized nationally, he recognized how important this last election was and how many issues were critically tied and linked to faith. And Charlie and I sat on the stage and discussed that with the many parishioners at his wonderful church. And, you know, he got the faith community up and voting. There was always that criticism that the Christians don't vote. They don't get out and vote. And I will tell you, Charlie Kirk made a difference. He not only got the young voters out, he not only did the chase the ballot movement, but he got the Christians voting, registered to vote, and showing up at the polls. And we just can't thank him enough for what he did. He's the reason our country is being saved right now. He's the reason President Trump won. Without Turning Point and Turning Point action and Charlie's work, these battleground states would not have gone the way that they did. And President Trump won by the biggest margin of any battleground state in the state of Arizona where Turning Point and Turning Point action are based.
You know, we're hearing stories of conservatives who actually were not believers and didn't believe in mixing religion with politics in Charlie's death, now saying, wow, I can sort of really see why he was doing it, and are coming around to support such things. Malia, how did faith influence Charlie's everyday life?
It led him to act with faith in everything that he did. He prioritized, as we all should, being a Christian above any political affiliation or ideological affiliation. And he cared about, as Carrie alluded to, preaching the gospel more than, not more than earning votes, but changing hearts and minds, and in turn that does win votes and it wins elections. And he knew that in order to secure America for the next generation, it would take more than just winning this election or that election. It would need to be a reformation of hearts and minds and a revival of Christianity throughout the country. And that's what he aimed to do every single day. I mentioned I met Charlie first back in 2014, and he didn't talk about, religion much back then or his faith much back then, but over the past a little over a decade now, he has become even more emboldened and preached the gospel to hundreds of thousands, if not millions, through all of his platforms. And he was committed to that above all else. And even as Carrie mentioned, even I myself, he influenced me in such a way that him and Erica both, honestly, a lot of credit to Erica as well, because her program, Bible in 365, it has encouraged me to read the Bible through now 3 times. I'm on my 4th year of doing it. And so just the family as a whole, and God be with Erica and the children and just their whole family, because I can't imagine how difficult this must be. But faith absolutely influenced every part of Charlie's everyday life. He wasn't someone who was just Christian in name only. He really led by example and led through the gospel.
In Charlotte, Bible study and the college experience aren't usually synonymous. How impactful was Charlie in bringing spirituality to young people at a time where it's really needed? And what challenges do you think that Charlie faced in his day-to-day and was able to use faith as his guiding light to make it through?
I think, as we've all noticed here and said, I think Charlie using faith as consistently his guiding light as to, doing the right thing and just influencing others to do the right thing. I think God worked through Charlie in numerous different ways, especially going on to college campuses. I think probably one of the biggest challenges, was, not being able to be at his home as much as he wanted to, but knowing that he had to get out there and get the word out, especially back in 2020, 2022, 2024, when we had election cycles, just wanting the message to get across that we had to save our country and we had to do everything that we could, I think was super important. I think especially with Charlie consistently telling young men and women, get married young, have babies young, your job is to, procreate and have as many children as you can and make sure that you raise them right and make sure that they love this country just as much as we all do. I think those are very important factors. And Charlie was, massively, important on bringing light to family values and making sure, you have a father and a mother and you have children and you raise them up to be, God-fearing Christians. And I think we know that Charlie is now sitting at the right hand of our Father, and Erica and her children, obviously, God, please be with them. But I think that, Charlie made a massive impact, especially on college campuses. And, lots of people, as you said, have been, going to church for the first time in their lives now due to Charlie's death. And, if that's one thing good that come out of this horrific tragedy, then I think that Charlie's message and legacy will live on through that.
Carrie, in an era of fundamental ideological... Please.
Can I say one more thing on the faith part of Charlie? It just struck me when I was listening to Malia and Charlotte. Charlie wove faith. I shouldn't say wove faith in. Faith was a part of who he was. His deep belief and his deep belief in Christianity and Jesus Christ. It was just part of who he is. A friend of mine who worked closely on the transition team after President Trump's victory in November, they were in Florida. Charlie was right there in the building, the transition team, working to hire up people for President Trump's next administration. And while they were all busy working and screening people and doing background checks, Charlie would just randomly say things like, one of the things he said was, hey, Colton, do you know that Jesus Christ is your Lord and Savior? And I remember Colton saying, yes, Charlie, I do know that. But those are the kinds of things. He would randomly send text messages to me. I'd look down, I'd say I have a text from Charlie, and it would be a Bible verse. How he knew at that moment it would be the Bible verse I needed, I don't understand. But this is who he was. He was constantly thinking of Jesus, constantly thinking of his faith. And I give great credit to Erica on that. She's been a longtime Christian, and we saw her strength last night. I think she really put Jesus at the center of that relationship and ignited that fire in Charlie's heart.
We will have to pause our discussion here for a short break. Carrie, thank you so much for taking a moment out of your busy schedule to join us. We'll continue to reflect on Charlie Kirk's legacy and impact when we come back and look ahead to how his supporters are carrying his values and his movement forward.
Gets entangled into a culture and even government. Most wars have started because of that.
So that's a talking point that has no basis, and that's okay because a professor told you that. So let's go to the truth. What religion did Mao Zedong believe in, the great murderer of China who killed 50 million people? He was an atheist. What religion did Joseph Stalin believe in, who killed over 30 million people of the Soviet Union? He was an atheist. So that's 80 million people murdered in 2 countries in just the 20th century that did not believe in any religion. Do you want me to explain psychology?
Well, you can't explain it to the depths of a bachelor's degree or a PhD.
Well, hold
or
on a second. Time out. I've sat here with no notes, no phone, and debated people with PhDs,
because you study
masters.
this because it's your job.
Hold on. I didn't go to college, man. That's the point, is you can do whatever you want without a college degree. You can listen to podcasts, read books.
You know, how do you feel about the black community receiving reparations?
Here's my view, and I want to hear yours, which is that I did not own slaves, and you were not a slave.
Correct.
Right, so we are individuals, and therefore we cannot be held accountable or should receive something from something that didn't happen to us or something we did not do. Secondly, we need to put fathers back in the home.
Yeah, I agree with that.
70% of black kids are raised without a stable father in the country. So if we can find common ground on that, I think that would go a lot further than just giving cash for people that happen to be related to something evil that happened a little while ago.
I just want to say I'm a transgender male. What age should kids be able to get things like hormone therapy? Because I don't know what's true, what's not.
I'm going to have an opinion that very few people will ever tell you, which is I want you to be very cautious putting drugs into your system in the pursuit of changing your body. My prayer for you, and again, very few will say this, I actually want to see you be comfortable in how you were born.
Yeah.
From inside of the egg in the first couple of days? No.
Well, okay, but let's go through that. Isn't that when your DNA was formed?
Yeah.
But then aren't you fundamentally at its core, you are, the DNA is your blueprint for your life. That's who you are. It's a unique marker.
It's my DNA, yeah.
Yes, so if it's not your DNA, why is it your choice? What's the moral difference between a small baby in the womb and a grown Jew who was killed at Auschwitz? What's the moral difference? One is older?
Is a person.
What species is the baby in the womb?
It's a human, but it's
therefore they should have human rights.
No.
They should have human rights.
I do not agree.
Oh, so small humans no human rights, grown humans human rights.
It's not a small human, it's an embryo.
You just said it was a human species. That Christ is not just grace-focused, he's simultaneously truth-focused. He goes up to the woman who had a career in selling herself for sex and said, sin no more. Now, imagine today how much trouble you would get in if you would go up to somebody and say, stop sinning. No, you're being too judgmental. No, you're actually being Christ-like.